Adama and Tariq seem like the perfect couple, living a life many would envy in the heart of a bustling city. Tariq is successful, always charming, and has an almost magnetic presence. Everyone sees them as the ideal pair, always smiling, always in sync. But behind the picture-perfect facade, Adama begins to feel a growing unease. At first, it's small things. Tariq's little comments about her friends, the way he reacts when she wears certain clothes, or how he always wants to know exactly where she is and who she's with. These little signs soon turn into something more disturbing. Adama notices that Tariq's jealousy seems to have no limits. His possessiveness suffocates her, and his need to control every aspect of her life becomes harder to ignore. Something doesn't sit right, but she struggles to pinpoint exactly what it is. She wonders if she's just overthinking it, but deep down, she senses that this perfect life may not be as flawless as it seems. The growing tension makes Adama's stomach churn. The more she reflects, the more these red flags seem to point to a darker reality, but she can't bring herself to confront him. Tariq still has that sweet side that keeps her hopeful. He buys her gift, says all the right things, and every time she tries to bring up her discomfort, he spins it into reassurance. Still, she can't shake the feeling that something is about to go terribly wrong. She becomes more isolated, slowly losing her grip on the life they built together. Her trust in Tariq starts to fade, and though she tries to push her doubts aside, they keep creeping back, and with each passing day, they grow stronger. But little does she know, the danger isn't just in her thoughts. It's real, and it's coming for her. One quiet morning, Tariq came into the room with a warm smile and a surprise in his voice. He told Adama he had planned a special trip for just the two of them, a romantic train ride to another city. He said it would be a break from the stress, a way to rekindle their love and spend quality time together. At first, Adama was caught off guard. Things had been tense between them lately. The arguments, the strange mood swings, the way he'd been watching her so closely. But a part of her still wanted to believe in their love. She still remembered the man she fell for, the one who once made her feel safe and adored. So, despite the strange gut feeling twisting inside her, she nodded and agreed to go. The day of the trip arrived. Tariq seemed unusually cheerful, like the man she used to know. He had packed her favorite snacks, held her hand tightly, and kept telling her how excited he was to spend time with her again. Adama forced herself to smile, but her heart beat faster with every step toward the station. Something about his sudden sweetness didn't feel right. It felt rehearsed, too perfect, but she stayed quiet. Maybe this really was his way of making things better. Maybe she was just being paranoid. They boarded the train just before sunset. The sky outside was painted with soft orange and pink, and the cool breeze through the windows gave a sense of calm. The train wasn't too crowded, just a few travelers spread out across the compartments. Tariq guided her to their seats by the window. He kept his arm around her, whispering sweet things in her ear. But even then, Adama could feel her body tense up every time he touched her. He was being so charming, so thoughtful, but it didn't match the controlling, cold man she had been living with for months. As the train rolled forward, Adama stared outside, trying to enjoy the view, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She noticed how Tariq was watching her, not like a lover, but like someone observing every move she made. His smile never quite reached his eyes. Then he offered her a drink, a small bottle he pulled from his bag. "It'll help you relax," he said with that same soft tone. She hesitated, but took it. It tasted normal, but a few sips in, she felt a strange heaviness settling over her. Her eyes grew a little heavier, and her limbs started to feel like they were wrapped in cotton. She turned to him and tried to speak, but her mouth felt dry. Tariq just smiled and told her to rest, saying they had a long ride ahead and she needed to conserve her energy. That sentence echoed in her head. Why would she need to conserve energy on a simple train ride? Her body leaned against the window, but her mind was wide awake, alert with fear. Something wasn't right. The way he looked at her, the sudden trip, the drink, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle she didn't want to solve. As the train rolled deeper into the night, Adama's fear grew. She felt trapped, far from home, with a man who no longer felt like her husband, but more like a stranger hiding behind a mask. Her instincts screamed at her that something terrible was coming, and even though she didn't know what, she was sure of one thing. This wasn't a romantic escape. This was a trap, and she was already caught in it. The train slowly pulled away from the station, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. The soft rumble of the wheels on the track, the gentle sway of the carriage, and the fading light of the sun casting golden hues across the sky, all of it created a beautiful, calm atmosphere. Adama leaned her head against the window, watching trees and buildings blur past, trying to let herself enjoy the moment. Maybe this trip really was just a thoughtful gesture from Tariq. Maybe she had been overthinking things. For a short while, she allowed herself to believe that everything was okay. Tariq sat beside her, smiling, his eyes never leaving her face. He spoke sweetly, pointing out little things outside the window, brushing her hair away from her face, holding her hand tightly, as if he was scared to let it go. But beneath his smile, there was something unsettling in his gaze. It wasn't soft or loving. It was calculating, watchful. Adama could feel his eyes studying her, like he was waiting for something. She tried not to let it show that she noticed, pretending to be relaxed, but her chest tightened every time she felt his stare. A little while into the ride, Tariq reached into his bag and pulled out a drink. It was in a sleek bottle, something he said he'd bought especially for her. "You need to relax," he said with a gentle voice, pressing the bottle into her hands. "You've been so tense lately. Just drink it. It'll help." His tone was soothing, and his smile was convincing. She hesitated for a second, but then took a few sips. The taste was normal, sweet, a little fizzy, nothing alarming. She gave him a small, tired smile and leaned back in her seat, thinking maybe she could finally let her guard down. But within minutes, something felt off. Her limbs began to feel heavy, first her arms, then her legs. Her head swam slightly, and the edges of her vision started to blur. At first, she thought maybe it was the motion of the train. She tried to sit up straighter, blinked a few times, and shook her head. But instead of clearing, the fog in her mind only grew thicker. Her heartbeat quickened. She turned to look at Tariq, and his smile hadn't changed. But now, it didn't seem comforting at all. It seemed cold. Adama's breathing grew shallow. Her mouth felt dry. She tried to speak, to ask him if something was wrong with the drink, but her words came out slow and slurred. Tariq leaned in closer, placed his hand on hers, and whispered, "Just rest, my love. Everything's going to be fine." His voice sounded distant, almost echoing in her ears. Panic bubbled up inside her, but her body wouldn't respond. Her fingers twitched weakly, and her eyes fought to stay open. She looked around the train compartment, hoping someone else would notice her distress. But everyone else seemed lost in their own world. No one was watching. No one saw her struggle. Her mind screamed for her to get up, to run, to do something, but her body wouldn't obey. As the train moved deeper into the countryside, further from anything familiar, Adama felt herself slipping. Something was terribly wrong. And Tariq, her husband, the man she once trusted more than anyone, wasn't trying to help her. He was watching her fall apart, and for the first time, she realized the danger wasn't coming. It was already here. Adama's body felt heavier with every passing minute. Her eyes fluttered, trying to stay open, but the drowsiness was impossible to fight. Her head tilted slightly, her breath growing slower, and the once vibrant view outside the train window began to blur into soft streaks of color. Tariq noticed her struggling to stay awake and gently pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her and guiding her head onto his shoulder. "Just rest," he whispered softly. "You've been so tired lately. Let yourself sleep." His voice was low and comforting, but something in it felt different now, too rehearsed, too calm. Adama didn't have the strength to question him. Her mind was foggy, her thoughts slipping in and out like waves on the shore. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny voice whispered that something wasn't right. She closed her eyes, hoping the feeling would pass, but instead of peace, she felt her heart pound harder. Her limbs were numb, her lips were dry, and the world around her felt like it was slowly dimming. In this dazed state, her senses still caught things, small things. The sound of the train tracks humming beneath them, the soft chatter of passengers, the clink of a glass. And then, something strange, a whisper, close but not directed at her. 2 seats behind them, a hushed voice carried through the air. A woman, speaking quietly to someone beside her. The tone was nervous, almost fearful. "Did you hear about the last one?" the woman said. "A girl traveling with her husband. They said it was an accident, but she never woke up. Just like that. No explanation." Adama's eyes remained closed, but her brain latched onto the words like a lifeline. Her chest tightened. Was it just a random conversation? A A coincidence? Or was it something more? Her head still rested on Tariq's shoulder, and he gently stroked her arm, like everything was normal, but those whispers from behind wouldn't stop echoing in her mind. She never woke up. Over and over. The fog in her head was thick, but that one sentence cut through it. Her intuition jolted awake. She wasn't just tired. She wasn't just sleepy. Something had made her this way. Her mind scrambled to remember what she'd eaten, what she drank, and then it hit her. The drink Tariq gave her, the one he said would help her relax. Her stomach turned. Was that why she felt like this? Was he trying to put her to sleep? Or worse? She tried to lift her head, to shift her body, but it was like moving through water. Every motion was slow, heavy. She opened her eyes just a little and caught a glimpse of Tariq's face. Calm, unreadable. Not the face of a man worried for his wife, but someone waiting for something to happen. Adama knew she had to stay awake. She had to fight whatever was pulling her under. The fear that had been creeping inside her for weeks was now screaming. This wasn't just a bad feeling anymore. This was real. Something terrible was happening. Tariq wasn't just controlling. He was dangerous. And now, she was stuck in a moving train, far from help, drugged, and barely able to keep her eyes open. Still, she refused to give in. Somewhere inside her, a flicker of survival lit up. She didn't know how or what to do next, but she knew she had to act, soon, because whatever Tariq had planned, he was getting closer to doing it, and she was running out of time. The train suddenly came to a halt with a loud screech, shaking the compartment slightly and snapping a few passengers out of their light conversations and naps. A few people looked out of the windows in confusion. There were no stations around, no signs, just dark empty land and tall grass stretching out on both sides. The silence outside felt too deep, almost eerie. The lights inside the train flickered twice, briefly throwing everything into a dim, unsettling glow before returning to normal. Adama's heart skipped a beat. She felt the dizziness in her head grow heavier, her vision still foggy, but her mind sharper now. Something was off, badly off. She turned to Tariq, hoping to find some shared concern on his face, but he wasn't surprised at all. While other passengers were whispering to each other, confused and irritated, Tariq sat calmly, hands folded in his lap, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. He looked completely at ease, too calm for a situation so strange. He even leaned in and whispered, "Probably just a technical issue, don't worry." But Adama wasn't comforted. The way he said it was too casual, too smooth, like he already knew what was going to happen next. She shifted in her seat, trying to stand, but her body protested. Her legs were weak, shaky like they didn't belong to her. The floor seemed far away. She placed her hand on the seat in front of her to steady herself and glanced around. Most of the passengers were murmuring among themselves, peeking out the windows, wondering what had gone wrong. The train conductor hadn't made any announcements. There was no staff walking through the aisle to explain the delay. That was odd, and the longer the train sat still in the middle of nowhere, the heavier the silence grew. Adama looked at Tariq again. He was still calm, still waiting. The light flickered once more, and that was when she felt it. Panic creeping up her spine. Her dizziness was getting worse, and she now realized it wasn't just from the train or exhaustion. Her body wasn't just tired. It had been drugged. The drink. She'd almost forgotten about the drink. Her heart started pounding hard against her chest. She turned away from Tariq quickly, pretending to look outside, trying to hide the fear growing on her face. As she stared into the darkness beyond the window, pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. The sudden trip, the charm, the drink, the strange way he had been watching her, and now, the train stopping out of nowhere in a place where no one could help her. This wasn't a coincidence. Tariq had planned something. Adama's mind raced, trying to think of what to do. Her hands trembled as she slowly reached for her bag, pretending to search for something while trying to calm her breathing. She had to stay alert, had to stay awake, even if her body felt like giving up. She couldn't let Tariq know she was starting to understand what was happening. He leaned in closer again, brushing her hair behind her ear, whispering, "Don't worry, we'll be moving soon." But this time, the softness in his voice chilled her. It didn't feel loving. It felt like a warning, a quiet signal that whatever was coming next, he was ready for it. Adama wasn't, but she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't a normal train ride, and if she didn't act fast, she might not get another chance. Adama barely had time to gather her thoughts when Tariq gently took her hand and said, "Come, let's walk for a bit. You need some fresh air." His tone was soft, but something about it made her stomach twist. Still feeling weak and dizzy, she nodded slowly, not wanting to draw attention. She let him help her up, her legs still shaky beneath her. He led her down the narrow corridor of the train, past quiet passengers and dimly lit compartments, until they reached a section that was almost completely empty. It was quiet, too quiet, no staff, no other travelers, just the low hum of the train's engine and the soft buzz of flickering lights above. Once they reached the end of the carriage, Tariq stopped. His grip on her arm changed. It was no longer gentle, it was tight, unkind. Adama's breath caught in her throat. Something in his eyes had shifted. The warmth was gone. All that remained was cold calculation. "You need to know something," he said, his voice now flat and emotionless. "There's no happy ending for you on this train." Adama's eyes widened, her heart thudding painfully in her chest. She tried to step back, but he blocked her path. "I didn't bring you here for a romantic escape," he continued, his tone disturbingly calm. "I brought you here to finish something I've been planning for months." Adama blinked rapidly, struggling to process his words. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Tariq leaned closer, his face inches from hers. "I'm going to make it look like an accident. No one will suspect a thing. The authorities will think you passed out, maybe slipped, maybe fell." He smiled slightly, as if proud of the plan. "I'll cry. I'll tell them I tried to save you. And then, I'll collect your life insurance. It's already done. Papers signed. I get everything." She stared at him, horrified, as he laid out the details so easily, like he had practiced this moment 100 times in his head. The romantic gestures, the sweet words, the drink. It had all been part of his plan. Her chest tightened with terror. She wanted to scream, but her voice wouldn't come. She wanted to run, but her body still felt weak. "I trusted you," she managed to whisper, barely hearing her own voice. "That was your mistake," he said, without a hint of remorse. "You trusted too much. You never saw it coming." Adama looked around desperately. The hallway was empty, no one nearby to help. The train was still stopped, the lights still dim. She was trapped in this moment, cornered by the man she once thought loved her. But now, there was no love left, only danger. He took a step forward, and she instinctively backed up, pressing herself against the cold wall of the train. Her mind was spinning, her heart beating so fast she thought it might explode. But deep inside, something sparked. Fear turned into survival. He had revealed his plan too soon. She still had time. Barely, but enough. Tariq's confidence blinded him. He thought she was too weak, too scared, too drugged to fight back. But Adama knew now, this wasn't just about escaping a bad relationship. This was about staying alive. Her legs felt like sandbags, arms trembling with weakness, but something inside burned brighter than fear. She wasn't ready to die. Not like this. Not by his hands. He reached for her again, face twisted in frustration, but she ducked just in time, gripping the metal tray she had earlier thrown. With a shaky breath, she swung it again, catching him off guard, the edge grazing his jaw. He staggered, shocked she still had strength left. The dim light flickered above them, casting eerie shadows in the narrow train corridor. Each second felt stretched, every sound, his footsteps, her gasps for air, magnified in the silence. She backed away, bumping into the side wall, eyes scanning frantically for something, anything she could use. He growled under his breath, furious now, charging again. This time, she grabbed the edge of a seat and shoved it between them, slowing him down just enough to slide past. Every movement was a battle. Her limbs didn't respond like they should, but adrenaline was now her only fuel. The fire extinguisher on the wall caught her eye. She pulled it free, nearly losing her grip. As he lunged at her again, she raised it with both hands and slammed it into his shoulder. The sound of metal against bone rang out, followed by a grunt of pain. He dropped to one knee for a moment. She turned and ran, forcing herself forward, even as the hallway blurred. Voices of passengers sounded distant, like echoes in a dream. She stumbled into the next compartment, knocking over a trolley. A startled attendant stepped back, eyes wide. Before she could speak, he was already behind her again, grabbing her wrist with force. The look on her face must have said everything, because the attendant shouted for help. She twisted hard, elbowing him with all she had. It wasn't enough to stop him, but it was enough to break free for a split second. Just enough. She dashed toward the emergency intercom. Her fingers fumbled over the button. The train shook slightly as it started moving again. She screamed into the speaker, begging for help, voice cracking. Behind her, footsteps rushed closer. Turning sharply, she kicked a door closed, jamming it with her foot while searching for another escape. He was getting closer. The fear on his face had changed. Now it was panic. His plan was falling apart. She didn't stop. She couldn't. Grabbing hold of the nearest seat, she used it to swing herself into another aisle where more people were starting to notice. Someone screamed. Another stood up. Eyes were on them now, and that was her chance. One final burst of strength pushed her toward the front. The lights, the people, the noise. It all became a blur behind her. But one thing was clear. She wasn't going down without a fight. She stumbled backward, her strength nearly gone. Arms raised to shield herself from the blow she was sure was coming. He was almost on her again, eyes dark with fury, hand outstretched to grab her one last time. It felt like the end until something unexpected happened. From the shadows of the train car, a man stepped forward. No one had noticed him before. He had been sitting quietly near the corner, head low, as if asleep. But now, his presence filled the space with a strange calm. Dressed in a long, dark coat with eyes that seemed far too bright for the dim light, he moved with a stillness that didn't belong in the chaos. Without saying a word, he raised his hand. As if struck by invisible chains, Tariq froze mid-step. His expression changed from anger to confusion and then to fear. He tried to move, but his limbs wouldn't respond. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was like time itself had stopped just for him. She blinked in disbelief. Her breath caught in her throat as she looked at the stranger. There was something not quite human in the way he stood, the way his eyes seemed to look straight through her soul. She felt no fear from him, only peace. "You are not meant to fall today," he said softly, voice deep and calm. "Your story does not end here." She stared at him, unsure if she was dreaming. The dizziness still clouded her thoughts, but the pain, the fear, the tension, it was all very real. And yet, so was he. He turned his gaze to the frozen figure beside them. This one has chosen darkness, and now he will face it. There was no anger in his voice, only a quiet authority that couldn't be questioned. People around them began to notice, gasps, whispers, confusion, but no one dared step closer. The air in the train seemed to hum with energy. Lights flickered again, but this time it wasn't from a technical fault. It was something else. She reached out slightly, as if to make sure the stranger was real. He looked back at her and nodded gently. "You were watched, protected. Sometimes, when destiny calls, even fate must send a hand." And just like that, the weight in her chest loosened. The danger was still around her, but she wasn't alone anymore. Whatever or whoever this man was, he had stopped something terrible from happening. Tariq, still frozen, could only blink in horror as he was pulled away by train security, who were suddenly on the scene. She looked back at the stranger, ready to ask a million questions, but he was already stepping away, disappearing into the crowd as if he was never there. And yet, deep inside, she knew he was real. He had been sent for a reason, and this was only the beginning of something far greater than she could imagine. Just when everything felt like it couldn't get any stranger, the train gave a sudden, violent jolt. Everyone inside stumbled, some cried out, others clutched their seats. The lights flickered once more, but this time, they didn't come back in full. Instead, a soft, glowing light seemed to fill the train. It didn't come from the bulbs or the outside. It came from something unseen, something deep and powerful. The air felt different now, heavy, but not in a frightening way. More like something sacred had entered the space. She stood frozen, heart pounding, eyes scanning the compartment. Her attacker was still locked in place, unable to move. His eyes, once filled with rage, were now wide with disbelief. Something beyond human had taken over. Then the stranger turned back to her. His face was calm, almost gentle, but his presence was stronger than ever. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't need to. "You are protected," he said in a voice that seemed to echo inside her soul. "Your life is not meant to end today. Your path is just beginning." Her hands were still shaking, body weak, but her heart suddenly felt steady. For the first time since the nightmare began, She believed she would live, not just survive, but truly live. It wasn't just luck that had saved her. It was something divine, something greater than she could explain. She looked over at the man who once claimed to love her. He couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't fight. It was as if an invisible force had wrapped around him, holding him still. There was no struggle left in him, just shock and helplessness. The stranger stepped aside, fading slowly into the background as train officials moved in, unaware of the spiritual energy lingering in the air. No one else seemed to notice the glow, but she did. She felt it deep in her chest, in her breath, in her heartbeat. Whatever had happened wasn't just about escaping danger. It was about being chosen. She didn't know why or how, but she knew one thing for sure. Her story wasn't over. Not yet. Something bigger was waiting, and fate had just made sure she would be there to meet it. The train finally pulled into the next station, its brakes screeching as it came to a halt. The chaos inside slowly settled. Passengers whispered, eyes wide, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. She sat quietly, breathing deeply, her hands still trembling, but her mind clearer than ever. The moment the doors opened, security and medical staff rushed inside, responding to reports of a disturbance on board. She pointed toward the man who had tried to end her life. He was still standing where the force had left him, now able to move again, but completely silent, as if he knew the battle was lost. His eyes didn't meet hers. There was no more power in him, only fear. The officers quickly restrained him. She spoke, voice shaky but firm, explaining everything that had happened, from the drink he gave her to his confession, the struggle, and the moment everything changed. She told them about the stranger, how he stepped in when no one else could, how he saved her life. But when asked who he was or where he went, she had no answer. He was simply gone, like mist in the air. No one could find him. Cameras had nothing. It was as if he had never been there. And yet, she knew what she had seen, what she had felt. It was real, all of it. Later, as the dust began to settle, she stood on the platform, watching the train disappear into the distance. Her heart was heavy, but free. She had escaped death, uncovered betrayal, and witnessed something beyond this world. What should have been the end of her story had become the beginning of something new. She didn't return to her old life. That part of her was gone. Instead, she walked forward, stronger, wiser, and full of a new purpose. Her story spread quickly, shared by those who had been on the train and those who heard of the miracle that took place. People spoke of the mysterious figure, of how light had filled the train, of a woman who survived against all odds. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was fate. She had been chosen to live, to inspire, and to remind the world that sometimes, when all hope seems lost, something greater steps in to guide us back into the light. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey.